And so what I did is I figured out what questions would I ask myself that would help elicit this. Because what I've discovered over time, honestly, Marcel, is that everybody already knows their purpose. They already know their big five for life. The problem is it's buried so deep under the layers of you have to do this, you should do this, you can't do this, that they can't tap into it anymore. And so my job really is to actually peel back the layers of you can't do this and to release the information that's already inside someone.
Hello and welcome to the Good Vibes Podcast, your show to live a happier life. My name is Marcel Clementi, and today I have the honor to interview one of my favorite authors of all time. He is bestseller 8 times of the year, has sold over 9 million copies, and if you have ever read any kind of self-help book, you definitely know who I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome John Strelecky.
Hey Marcel, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. I'm so happy to interview you today because your book, the Café, was really one of the first books that helped me to find my own way and to start listening to myself instead of just focusing on the outer world. And sometimes as creators, podcasters or writers, I think it is hard to get a feeling how important your work is or how much influence it can make in other lives, because you sit at home, you are writing your stories, your books, recording these videos, and I know it firsthand because many people are practicing yoga with me or listening to the podcast, but I don't see them practicing. I don't see if they are laughing at my jokes or
right.
if
they are, Marcel, trust me.
yeah, hopefully.
That's what I always tell myself, yeah.
And I would love to start this talk with you with a little story to tell you how much value you give others and how much value you gave to my life and to the friends and family in my life. And I was 21 and felt really lost. I didn't know what to do with my life. I was really unhappy. I lost my best friend on a motorbike accident, and I really didn't know who I was or where I want to be, where I want to go. And then I had to go to the army. It's mandatory in Austria. So I went there for 6 months and had to guard the castle there, if you can call it a castle. So it was really, not an important task, but I used the time to start reading about self-help. And I stumbled on your book and it started changing my whole life. I started to ask myself questions. Where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? And what is a fulfilling life? And what is really possible? And now I'm here recording the podcast. And 3 years ago, I met my girlfriend and we started dating. And she's a really talented architect and just finished her bachelor and wanted to go to Vienna actually. And I was living in Innsbruck, so this would have been a 4-hour train ride. And we met, we fell in love, and I gave her a present, and it was your book. The first present I gave her 3 years ago, it was your book, and I wrote a letter to her. And I would love to read parts of this just real quick, but just to...
I'd be honored to hear that.
Yeah, just... I know you get the reviews, you get the comments, like I do, the 5-star reviews or the comments on YouTube, hey, thank you so much, but you are such a humble person, and if someone is writing books like you and recording content like we do, it's not about money, it's not about fame, it's really about changing lives, and you really changed our lives. So I wrote, Dear Alina, I need to translate it in English. I know that everything in life has its place, and I couldn't ask for a better place than being next to you. No matter where this place will be, if it's in Innsbruck or Vienna or wherever you go, I will always go there with you. This book has helped me to change my life. It was the first step to find freedom. It was the first step to start getting to know myself better. It helped me to show me what is truly important and how to find my own voice, no matter how loudly other people are screaming. In the past few years, I had the chance to create the life I truly wished for and to follow my dreams. And this is exactly what I want for you to happen. Get to know yourself, find your own path, chase your dreams, and never give up. I know that you can achieve anything you want, and no matter where this will be, I will always be there to support you with all my love, with all my strength. I'm so proud of you. In love. And this is really with the 16th of July, 3 years ago. So thank you, John, for your work. It's really inspiring and amazing.
Oh, thank you, Marcel. That's, first of all, it's a beautiful letter that you wrote. I think any human on the planet who receives a letter like that from somebody else is a lucky person. That means they've found someone who so cares about them and honors them for who they are. And so that's a beautiful gift for you to give, a beautiful gift for your girlfriend to receive. So that is spectacular. And I'm honored that the Café on the Edge of the World is a part of that story. It is something so much bigger than me. And I think about that every single day. And I'm honored that I get to be part of the Café world and part of the conduit to these types of experiences that you're describing. It's been the greatest gift ever in my life. It's really something truly, truly special.
So it's now 20 years ago that you published this book, right?
Yeah. Wow. Didn't even think about that. But yeah, I wrote it 20 years ago. Yeah, that's crazy to think of. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but yeah.
Do you think it became easier to find your purpose? Now with YouTube, podcast, books, you can learn almost everything on YouTube for free. Do you think it became easier or harder with all the distractions, with social media, comparison, with all this pressure?
You know, it's such a funny thing about life. There is always a yin and yang balance to all things. And the technology piece is a really interesting one, because you're right that compared to what it was like when I was growing up, if you wanted to know something, you went to the library and you got help from a librarian, and they would tell you which book to start looking in. And literally that was it. You know, that was your resource for whatever you wanted to learn about. And that seemed spectacular compared to what it probably was 100 years before that in the world, where if your town wasn't lucky enough to have a library, then you went and asked whoever might know the information in your town, or else you just didn't know it. You know, so, but then you think about the flip side to it is that it is a never-ending source of potential distractions. And of course, there are some fantastic algorithms out there whose job it is to distract you. And so it's like most things, you can either treat it as a phenomenal asset, in which case, if you have a sense of, I would like to take my life in a different direction, and I think it looks like this, then all of that technology, all of those resources, all that information can be a great source of inspiration for you and a guide and tremendous wisdom. But if you don't have that starter, if you don't have that sense, then it can be nothing but distractions. It can actually keep you from the life that you want to live just as effectively as it can enable you.
Yeah, totally agree. And yin and yang is also in yoga an important topic, an important thing. And it's like social media, I think, is like using a knife. You can cut your strawberries for your yogurt in the morning, or you can cut your finger or injure others.
Yeah.
So it's always,
that's a great way to look at
use it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's obviously it's something that is going to be different for everybody based on their age and their life experiences. And so I had the experience in the fourth book in the Café series, Überraschung im Café am Rande der Welt. One of the things that I talk about is the joy of being bored, because being bored is what inspires you to say, what would make my life not boring? And that helps you project creatively the life that you want to live. But if we're not careful, we live what I call in the story, Hannah is the main character. She's 15. And so her experiences as a 15-year-old are very different than what mine were when I was 15. But basically, you have to be very careful not to be pleasantly occupied all the time. Pleasantly occupied is not bored, but not super happy, not fulfilled, but not ridiculously unhappy. And you just exist in this low-level state. I don't think that that's the real goal in life. I know that's not the real goal in life, because once you've experienced unbelievable joy or accomplishing something amazing, and for those people who have not seen Marcel's videos, you got to check this guy out, because dude, you are ridiculously strong and amazing in the work that you do with yoga. I saw you doing a couple of things and I was like, I didn't even know that was physically possible. Your body in that way with that kind of body strength. And so I think that's one of the great joys, right? That when you take on a challenge like that, because there was a time when you couldn't do that, right? There was a time when you'd have probably looked at somebody else doing that kind of a pose and you'd have been like, I don't think that's in my future. And that now you're the one who's leading it. And so I think that type of feeling, that type of experience is unbelievable. That's way better than pleasantly occupied. And so that's the great challenge of everybody who's grown up with pleasantly occupied as an option perpetually in their life.
But how can we manage to allow boredom back to our lives if we always have so much to do and the to-do lists are getting longer and longer, and if the theme is bigger, better, how can we bring back boredom and coming back to the present moment more often?
I'll tell you a couple of tips that I use, and then I would love to throw it back to you and hear what, because I know that you live very much in the present and in that space. You have to, again, for anybody who has not seen what Marcel does with his physicality, there's no way that you could be distracted and pull that stuff off. You must be incredibly, incredibly in the moment when you're doing those things. And so I'd love to hear about that. For my take, I have what I call my non-negotiables, and those are things that this is what begins my day. This is what fills my day. Everything else might be an add-on to that, but my non-negotiables are what come first. And I start my mornings with a breathing technique by a gentleman named Wim Hof, and I do 20 minutes of that first thing in the morning. I follow that up by 40 minutes of a very defined stretching routine that I've created for myself over the years that just works amazingly well for me. And I say I've created it for myself, but I've really taken things from other people that are genius at what they do and figured out what works best for my physicality and what keeps me strong and healthy. And so I start my day with that. And I was recently doing an interview with somebody and they shared something that was so brilliant. We were talking about how some days you just don't feel like doing it. You know, you're just like, oh, I don't know. Either the to-do list is calling you because there's 2,500 things on there, or you're just feeling a little lethargic that morning. And she said something that I will remember literally for the rest of my life. She said, on the days like that, I think that's the day you actually need it most. And so now whenever I have a day like that, I just reframe my thought process and I tell my brain, oh, actually what that means is we need this more than ever, right? So let's get the yoga mat, let's get out to the backyard and let's do the breathing. So I start with my non-negotiables and I apply that to a bigger frame too. I look at my calendar for the month and I look at my calendar for the year and I put in the things that are absolutely critical to me. And so days on the water is really important, whether it's in a kayak or a boat, but I love being out in the ocean, out in the intercoastal. And so I fill my calendar with those things that matter most to me, and then everything else can be added in. But that way my non-negotiables literally are non-negotiable. Yeah, what's your tactic? How do you do it?
I think this is so important to know your priorities and to learn to say no to distractions. And the difference between a happy life and a fulfilled life and a not fulfilling life, or the same about living a successful life and a not successful life, is not the fact, or it's not about all the things you do, it's about the things you don't do. And I think we really need to learn to say no and to make ourselves a priority again. It's okay to rest. It's okay to take a nap. It's okay to sleep a little longer sometimes, but in the same time following routines and including or like creating really important habits that bring you closer to your dreams and goals. But first you need to know, what are my dreams? What are my goals? Where do I want to go? And that really helped me to become more present and not only chasing my goals, chasing my dreams, and to focus more on the present moment with the routines that I created, with meditation, with yoga, with journaling, walking my dog and listening to audiobooks and podcasts. This is, like you say, John, it's non-negotiable. It's every day. And if someone asks me, hey, do you want to go for coffee? And I don't have the time because I haven't done my yoga or my workouts or of course, spend time with my dog, then it's a clear no. If it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. And I think you really, really need to know what is important for you, because you truly want it, because you truly feel it, and it helps you to create the life you desire, and what is only important for others, or you think it's important because you saw it on social media, you're comparing your life with another life, with your neighbor or your friends. And I think this is the key to happiness. And you can only be happy in the present moment. I can't say, okay, I'll be happy tomorrow, because tomorrow will be today.
Whatever it
the
is.
Next day, yeah.
Right. Who knows what 10 things might or might not happen tomorrow associated with what you perceive that happiness to be.
Exactly. And it's funny what you said. If on the days you don't feel like doing it, that are the days you should really go for your routines and stuff. It's the same with meditation. If you don't have 5 minutes to meditate, you should meditate for 10 or 15 minutes.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. One of the things that struck me as you were saying that is, first of all, there's kind of a general theme that we've bounced around but haven't really talked directly to, which is it makes it a lot easier to commit to these types of things when you know what they are. And that's whether it's a morning routine, that's whether it is major life goals like, oh, I want to go backpack the world. Like, I know you've traveled a lot. I've traveled a lot as well. And I meet a lot of people who want to travel but have not carved out that experience in their life. And maybe it's because they don't know for sure they want to do it. Maybe they haven't sampled it yet, so they don't know how absolutely amazing it's going to be when they get to go do that. But to me, that is one of the joys of those boredom moments. Those boredom moments become not boring, but important, but not crazy crowded when you allocate them towards thinking about what is the life that I want to live. And whether that's you go through a 2-day Big 5 for Life discovery experience, whether that is sitting in time in meditation, or whatever the path is to figure it out, I think that's actually one of the least talked about but most important steps you can take in your life to get to the end of your life and be like, yeah, it was awesome. Like, I lived an incredible, incredible life. And so that would be one of my first tips for someone who's struggling a bit, is to allow yourself to have time to just ask that question. I talk about, it's the very first question in the Café on the Edge of the World. Why are you here? You get statistically your life of 28,900 days. Everybody's answer is going to be different, but why are you here? What do you want to do with this amazing experience of life while you've got it?
Yeah. I mean, all your 3 questions in the first book are real bombs, like, oh, why are you here? It can be overwhelming sometimes, maybe, if you have never asked yourself questions like this. And then it's even more important to find that space and to create the time and the possibility to find the answers. And I think what is really important is to start looking for the answers within and to start reflecting, like with questions like yours. I'm a huge fan of journaling and sitting down with a cup of coffee and my journal and to ask questions like, how could I improve my life? Or how could I improve this podcast to inspire others? Or what was the biggest lesson I have learned in the past 3 months? And only if we allow time for stillness, we can find the answers, because otherwise we have this constant chattering in our minds that never stops. And there is a beautiful metaphor. If you think about your mind as a lake, and on the bottom of the lake there are all your answers, all the important answers for your life. Like, why are you here? Are you living a fulfilling life? What is happiness for you? What are your strengths? What is your purpose? But we are constantly throwing stones and mud into the water, so it's creating waves, and we can't see the answers. And we ask others for their opinions. Hey, why am I here? What are my strengths? But no one can give you the answers except yourself. And you need the stillness. You need to stand next to this lake and wait and listen and just be calm, so the water can become still again. And this makes it possible to see to the bottom of your lake, to the bottom of your heart, to find your answers.
I love that. And I think the journaling thing is really interesting, because in our current environment where people's attention span becomes less and less. And I noticed that in myself too, that I consciously have to monitor my brain's hyperness in terms of it wants to do stuff all the time now. It wants to be constantly fed. And what I never really thought of before until you were describing that is one of the reasons I think why Café on the Edge of the World or The Big Five for Life, any of the books connect well with people is because when you're reading, you are occupying the brain, but at the same time, you are very, very present. You can't be reading and be distracted by 50 other things at the same time. It just wouldn't work. You wouldn't be actually absorbing the content at all, and you'd probably stop reading. And so I wonder if that's actually why it works so well. Because sitting down and journaling on a question, which I think that technique that you described is an awesome one, it does require the willingness to sit there sometimes in silence and in quiet because you're not getting an immediate answer. And if you stick with it, or if you're in a conversation with someone, I know this with my team, we'll sometimes be brainstorming and we have to sit in silence in between the great ideas with nobody filling that space. And then often it's right out of that, oh, well, what about this? But we have to kind of absorb it a little bit. And so I think you've really hit on something really important about why reading works, is because it does focus our mind on that. And so it's about choosing the reading that you want to read that can help you get to where you want to go. And then allowing ourselves to really focus on the words in that story or focus on the words in that book. And then at the end of every chapter, maybe just take 30 seconds or a minute and pen in hand, write in the margins, like, what is my brain thinking right now? What is my heart, more importantly, thinking right now? That's an awesome technique. I'm going to be recommending that one. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Reading becomes meditation. And sometimes when I talk about meditation, or I see it on my YouTube channel, if I post a stretching video and I don't call it yoga, and it's just stretching for really stiff people, it's really the title, stretching for stiff people. People tend to watch it more often because it's not spiritual, it's not meditation, nothing about awareness. It's just for your body. It's just stretching. They look for a quick fix for the pain in the lower back or in the hips. But whenever I post something about meditation, it gets less clicks. And it's not about the clicks. I don't care if it's not about, how should I say it? Self-worth is not in the same, how should I say?
Not dependent on the number of
clicks. Not dependent
on
the number of clicks, exactly. But I always see that meditation is something that not everyone is ready to start. But if we look at meditation, what is meditation? What does it mean? It's not about sitting cross-legged on the mountaintop for hours. It's reading a book and being in the present moment and really understand what you're reading and creating this beautiful story in your mind and the emotions, and to really be present. Or a meditation could be a conversation with someone and you're truly listening and you're in the present moment. You're not already thinking, oh, what can I answer? So this is why sometimes I need a little longer in English, because I truly want to listen to you. And this is being present, awareness, meditation. It's not always spiritual. And this is also a really, really great way to become more present in life and to become more happy and to start finding the answers to your questions.
I think in hearing you describe that, a thought came to my mind, and I tend to use my intuition as I'm engaged in these conversations, which I love to have these conversations because, like I said, I always learn something from the person that I'm interacting with. I get a great idea. And although you wouldn't typically think about it, the intuitive thought I had is that even walking in a city, a place that is so incredibly crowded with so many potential stimuli and distractions, walking in a city can actually be a form of meditation. It's all about what's going on in between your ears. And so if while I'm walking through that city with all those noises and potential distractions, my mind is asking from a place of conscious, intensity, why am I here? Not in a judgment way, but a place of genuine curiosity. Why am I here? That you can have these tremendous moments of insights while you're moving, while you're walking, even in a place of crowdedness. So it's all about what happens between the ears, I find for myself. And that's good. That's like really inspiring, because then no matter where somebody is at in their journey physically, maybe they live in a place that they don't necessarily want to be at because they do feel it's a little more crowded than they want. You can still start your journey anywhere, I guess, is the takeaway that I would suggest. It's about asking yourself the questions and allowing yourself to close off the rest of the world for a little while and just focus on the questions that you really want answers to.
Exactly. And a quiet place, I think, can be found anywhere, like going into a park, sitting under a tree, or just put on noise canceling AirPods or something, and then start asking yourself the questions. And what is really important is that you don't pressure yourself to find the answers.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, such big questions, they take years to uncover, right? It's not
or seconds.
Or seconds.
That's the amazing thing, is that the range of experiences can be from literally you ask the question and you're going to get an answer that you never expected in a split second, or depending on what's going on in your life and where you're at, it may take longer. And sometimes it takes longer because there's a bigger story being played out. I was probably asking myself that question, wait, why am I here? What is the point of life, from the time that I was a little kid? And I didn't find my answers for a long, long time. Now, maybe I was asking the question the wrong way, or maybe I just didn't have the worldliness to get the answer when it was coming to me. But whatever, it took me decades to figure that out. But the more you partake in that endeavor, the more you build that muscle, the answers will start coming faster and faster. So I suppose it's, in that regard, it's a little bit like stretching, or a little bit like high performance yoga, like you do, that, the more you stay with it and the stronger you get and the better you get at it, the easier it gets. And that's a great life lesson to learn and a great thing to implement. Don't beat yourself up at the start. Know that it's going to get better. Just stick with it.
So you said you have found the answer to your questions. Why are you here? And probably it has changed in the past few years, because sometimes we set goals for the future, or we think we have a destination in our minds, but it's also okay to change the plan and to adapt and to, we are constantly learning and growing and changing. But what would be today, in this present moment, your answer to the question, why are you here?
Yeah, so my personal purpose for existing, which is the answer to that question, is to create museum day moments for myself and for others. It's something that I reflect on regularly. As you know, I talk about the big five for life in the book that I wrote. I reference it in a couple of different books that I wrote. But that is the awareness of the life that you most want to live, and defining that as the things that you most want to do, see, or experience. And then overarching above that is, what is the reason that you're here? So your purpose is the overarching reason. Your big five for life are the specifics of what you want to do to live that purpose, fulfill that purpose. And so by creating museum day moments for myself and for others is about being consciously aware of these moments in life that I'm helping facilitate, that then will become a permanent part of someone's story and a permanent part of my story too. And it goes back to what you were talking about earlier, where it's either a hell yes or it's a no. Because whether we want to admit it on a daily basis or not, our time is ticking. And you don't know when the 2-minute warning is going to sound, but there is going to come a moment where the game is over. And while I firmly do believe that there's actually more to this experience than just the human part, I'm quite convinced that we actually come from somewhere else on an energetic or spiritual level, and then we go to there again when we're done. I could be horribly wrong. And so maybe this is actually all there is. Either way, you might as well live your life in a very special fashion. And I think sometimes people hear that and they're like, oh, well, in that case, everyone would just go do crazy stuff. I don't think so, because at the end of the day, we're not just interested in filling our moments with like crazy stupidity. What we're actually interested in is getting to the end and saying, I lived a really special life, like my version of whatever that was. That could be going camping with your friends. That could be hiking the Rocky Mountains. That could be kayaking with orcas. Everybody's going to have their own answer to that question. Building a company, right? Being a great parent. But to me, at the end of the day, that's really what we crave. We crave fulfilling activities. And so having the awareness that the clock is ticking is a good reminder. And the sad part about that, which I know is part of your story, because you introduced a bit about your friend who died. And I had a friend who passed away over the holidays, this past year, over the Christmas holidays. And he was on a plane coming back from Christmas with his family, his two young daughters, and he died of a heart attack on the plane. And his life wasn't even half over statistically, you know? And I think about, why is that part of the human experience? Why do we lose friends that clearly have so much more life to live, you know, and have so much to offer? These are good people, you know? That's the part that seems most unfathomable to me. But the more I reflect on it, the more I realize that these are the bright lights of the world. And when those bright lights go out, it causes us to stop and think and ponder and to enter that empty space that we were talking about in our previous parts of the discussion, where we are not willing to allow distractions to keep our mind occupied because we want answers. We want to know what the heck is going on. Why did this bright light go out? And at the end of the day, I think the bright lights go out as an unbelievable self-sacrifice to remind the rest of us to live. For some reason, part of their story as a human being meant that they took on the willingness to leave far earlier than the rest of us will. But in doing so, it was the greatest gift because it reminded the rest of us to live, and not just live crazy, but to live in a way that is fulfilling. That's the only rational explanation I can come up with for why great people leave so much earlier than I think should be the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes we need lessons like this one. I mean, no one needs to lose someone, of course. We don't wish that for anyone, for anybody.
Never.
But like you say, on moments like this, you start reflecting what I'm actually doing with my life. What could I change? If I would die right now, would it have been a beautiful life?
Yeah.
What should I change to live a more fulfilling life? And what is my purpose? But what do you think, how people can actually find their purpose or find their big five for life?
It depends on the person. There's 3 methods that I always recommend. And this, I got this question so many times, starting when the Big Five for Life and the Café on the Edge of the World first came out. People would read the books and they would email me or contact me via social media, and they'd say, I so strongly feel energetically that there's something very powerful in these stories for me, for my life at this moment where I am. I'm struggling to figure out what is my purpose, or I'm struggling to figure out what is my Big Five for life. And so about, it's probably 15 years ago now at this point, I sat down and created a process that enables people to figure that out. And the good thing is I had no formal training in doing something like that. It's the same method I use for almost everything. I don't know anything, so I'll figure out what would work good for me. And then I at least know that it would work for me and my type of brain. And hopefully that's going to work for somebody else. And I find that's a good proxy, actually, that if I write something and it makes me cry, it'll probably make other people cry. If I write something that makes me laugh, it'll probably make some other people laugh. And so what I did is I figured out, what questions would I ask myself that would help elicit this? Because what I've discovered over time, honestly, Marcel, is that everybody already knows their purpose. They already know their Big Five for life. The problem is it's buried so deep under the layers of you have to do this, you should do this, you can't do this, that they can't tap into it anymore. And so my job really is to actually peel back the layers of you can't do this and to release the information that's already inside someone. And so I created this process where over the course of 2 days, any human on the planet who is honestly saying, I would love to figure this out, is going to figure it out. It works 100% of the time. And again, because they already know it inside of them. All I'm doing is asking them very simple to answer questions that help elicit that information. And through the patterns and the clues, you start to see it. Now, does somebody need to go through that experience? No, right? I mean, you could, there's lots of ways to discover your purpose on the planet. Sometimes it's in part like you would experience where a friend close to you passes away. It causes your whole life to get rocked, and it makes you ask the bigger questions in life. And then as you progress through a 6-month assignment as a soldier, you progress as these different things, and you go travel, and it starts to become clearer and clearer to you. I went and backpacked around the world when I was in my early 30s. I spent a year with a backpack on, changed my life completely. Like, that is what enabled me to clarify who I was, what was my purpose on the planet. Not everybody has time to go be a soldier for 6 months, go to India, or throw on a backpack for a year. And so what I tell people is there's lots of different ways to get there. Just know that it is 100% doable. Whether you're going to choose a 2-day experience or a year of backpacking, the option is there for you. And if you want to discover your purpose, you want to discover and live your big five for life, it's there. It's waiting for you. All you got to do is take the steps to get there.
I love this message. It's so empowering. And also, no matter what age, right? If you're
Totally
in the beginning of your 20s or you're in your mid 40s, there's always room to improve, to learn, to grow, to change. And that's the most beautiful thing that makes life so exciting for me. I never know what will happen tomorrow or next year. And it is also so important to always remind yourself that it is okay to have a bad day or to change paths or to say no to your old friends or to, I don't know, to negative people. This is also sometimes what I hear in my yoga retreats, that people say, yeah, I would love to dive deeper into self-help and personal development and yoga. But when I start talking about it at my office place, they start laughing at me. Or when I talk about self-help with my family, they say I'm crazy. And we value opinions of others often so much more than our own opinions, our own values, our own wishes and dreams. And it is so important.
I'm struggling, Marcel, because I think that right there is, you've just hit upon one of the great challenges of the human experience, which is allowing yourself to define who you are with complete indifference to the opinions of those around you. When you can master that, and it is very masterable, and I'm not saying it's easy. And the weird thing is that the more successful you become in the traditional successful metric, so, more people watch your videos about yoga on YouTube, or more people are listening to your podcast, you're basically increasing the size of the megaphone that people can tell you you're a piece of shit, your information is wrong, nobody needs to hear from you anymore. It's a very interesting dichotomy, because here you are doing good things to make a positive difference in the world, and the size of the megaphone actually increases. But what I think is the reason why it increases is this is part of the human growth experience, right? It's even challenging you. It's challenging me even more so that I don't care what they say. I know in my heart, I wrote the Café on the Edge of the World, or you do your yoga because you want to help make you do it for yourself first, because you want to have a life that you're happy with, that you're fulfilled with. You do it because you realize how much better it is to live a fulfilled life, and you want to help others who want to make that progression in their story, make it also. And then, if it was effortless and easy at that point, you wouldn't be growing, I wouldn't be growing. And so the size of the megaphone increases so that the noise can get louder, so we can demonstrate yet again that, you know what, I really don't care what you say. Yeah, I'm comfortable with who I am, and that's going to be good enough. So it's, and I say that, and tell me, trust me, my team would be the first one to tell you, there are some days that is easier than others. There's some days and I'm like, what the? But that's it. There's going to be tough days. There's going to be great days. But that's, I think, the human experience. You're going to get challenged on that stuff, probably ongoing.
And if you have a strong why, like, why are you doing this? Why I'm uploading new episodes in the podcast? Why are you doing these interviews, writing another book? You could probably stop and relax for the rest of your life, but you still want to help others. And there will always be an opinion that is different than yours. But if you appreciate yourself and you know your own value, I think this is so important, that we don't get the value out of external stuff, external people, likes and shares and comments and compliments. It's like a superpower if you just appreciate yourself and you're treating yourself like your best friend and not always like your hardest critic. For example, if I would be an artist and I'm drawing the most beautiful picture in the whole world for me, for myself, like with all my heart, all the effort, everything I have learned in the past few years, and I'm really proud of this product, of this piece of art, then I don't care if other people come and say, oh, that's an ugly picture, because I am proud of my work. And if you reach this level, I think that's freedom. That's what many people asking me, Marcel, what does freedom mean to you? And of course, doing the things I love with the people I love and only doing projects I really care about, saying no to the things I'm not interested in or saying no to negative people. But true freedom for me is to be yourself, to be authentic in every situation, no matter if it's in the supermarkets, if it's on stage, if it's in the podcast, on video, or with my girlfriend at home. It's always the same person, the same Marcel, and I think that's freedom for me. What would you say? What is freedom for you, John?
I would agree with that statement. I think in hearing you describe that, a couple of things come to mind. I think when I was younger, much earlier in my life, I would have said to you, all right, dude, you're a famous YouTube yoga guy. Like, this is me in my 20s, right? And easy for you to say that you don't care what other people think because you're already successful. You've already achieved, right? That would have been my mindset back then. What I've learned since then is that if you have the belief that, well, if I get to be successful, then I will stop caring what other people think, your path to becoming successful is going to be a whole lot longer. It's a bit contrarian, but if you can actually get to the point where you don't care what other people think, or at least, I'm not saying, maybe don't care what other people think isn't quite the right thing. Because when I write a book, I want to write it in a way that has a powerful impact on people. So it's not that I don't care what they think, but I'm not going to evaluate myself and my decisions based on that. I wouldn't change the content of one of my books, something that I truly believed was a positive and beautiful piece of a story, because somebody said, I don't like that, or, you know, that you're a bad writer. I wouldn't do it that way. But it's kind of a little bit like dating, in that the person who walks into the room with complete confidence, comfort, and knows who they are, they draw people to them. Like, there's something beautiful about that attracts us. And so that would be the flip that I would say that I didn't understand when I was younger. It's not about, well, if I'm successful, then I can stop listening to everybody else's opinion in a negative way. It's that if I stop listening to it, then I'm more likely to be successful. And there's one other aspect that and I'm not sure what I'm going to share is necessarily the healthiest aspect, but here's one thing that I do as well. Sometimes I have to tell myself that there's somebody out there who is very negative right now, right? For whatever reason. Maybe they've had a bad day at work. Maybe they've had a bad life because of their circumstances, their upbringing, whatever. And they feel like throwing daggers. And those daggers are going to be thrown at one of a myriad of people. And on those days, I tell myself, I would rather that I strap on the body armor that day and they can throw all the daggers at me, because maybe there's a little kid at home in their house, or maybe there's a pet, their dog's at home, or maybe it's their spouse or their coworkers or whoever. And so if they throw all the daggers at me, then maybe by the time they get home, they're going to be nicer to the people there. And there was times in my life when, you know, I was the much weaker version of myself. And if someone would have been throwing the daggers at me, that could have been catastrophic on that particular day. And so that's part of, I think, the growth journey for me as well, is to realize that as you do achieve success, notoriety, whatever, through the work that you do, through the genius that you release into the world, and everybody has genius that they can release into the world, that maybe part of your responsibility, in addition to passing that along so that you can help others, is every once in a while, you need to be the punching bag for somebody so that they don't hit somebody else. And I can live with that. And some days it's easier than others, but I can live with that.
But it also makes you stronger, right? And I think
yeah,
to be successful and to help many people, like you said, you're becoming a bigger target. But the success, no matter if it's with your books or with my yoga classes or the podcast, it's nothing that happened overnight. But when I started uploading my very first YouTube video, I got the comment, what's that piece of shit? You know, like, what should that be? And the thumb down. And I thought, oh, maybe YouTube is not the right place for me. And I'm happy that sometimes we get a negative feedback, or we have to deal with problems or with difficult situations, because it makes us so much stronger and we get to know ourselves. And I just read the second time the book I don't know the title in English, but like if you're too nice, the dogs will bite you. It would be the translation. And sometimes we just need to be, strong and to remember our self-worth.
I think so. In Safari des Lebens in Austria, at Life Safari in English, one of the things I love about writing is that the characters in the stories are saying things, doing things, and I'm writing it all down as I see it taking place in my mind's eye. And there's so much wisdom that is way beyond me. And so in Life Safari, it's the character of Mama Gombe, and she talks about her life story, and she explains the way the universe works in such a beautiful fashion. And she says that before we're born, we pick our challenges and we pick the things that will make us grow. Because if we picked nothing but easy stuff, imagine how boring life would be after the first few months of the human experience. And everybody in the world is an actor in our play, and we are actors in their play. And the thing that it's important to realize is when someone does something to you that is beautiful, you can appreciate them for the role that they play in your play. Maybe they're the one who gave you that inspiring thumbs up when you needed it most, right? And encouraged you to keep going. And the people who give you the thumbs down or the negative comment, that maybe that is the one that's testing your resolve, right? How committed are you to this project of this YouTube video? And then she says something to the effect of, once you realize that everyone is an actor in your play, it doesn't mean that you need to keep them in your play anymore. And that to me is the big aha. Like that's the goosebumps moment for me, is to realize that, okay, yes, I don't need to be a victim of their whatever. I can say, thank you very much for being in my play and for teaching me that lesson. And now I realize I don't want to be around you anymore. So bye-bye, right? It's either a hell yes or it's a no. And maybe for some of the relationships that have been in your life historically, or people that you meet on a day in, day out basis, maybe it's worth asking that same question. Is this potential person a hell yes or a no? And if it's a no, it's quite okay to just say, you know what? I see you're just an actor in my play, but I'm going to go off and do something else so you can be in somebody else's play right now. That's healthy to me.
Totally agree. Not easy, but important.
Yeah. And I kind of hear a perpetual theme in this conversation, Marcel, which again, I love these conversations because I always grow in them. And that is that the not easy part is, there's a reason it's not easy, because that is how we're growing. And so the balance, at the yin and yang we talked about, right? I want to grow, but I don't want to be knocked to my feet or knocked to the floor. I want to be able to stand back up again every time. And so if someone in your life, just to stay on that theme for a second, is the kind of person who knocks you to the floor, and it's so painful in the way that they do it emotionally, or worse, physically, that you have to stay down there for a long time, that's a hell no, right? If it's the kind of thing that someone challenges you in a good sort of way, well, I don't know, Marcel, tell me, why do you think that, right? Not in a confrontational way, but like we're really challenging each other in a good sort of way to grow. That's a yes. That's a hell yes.
I always end the interviews with 3 final questions, John. And I would love to ask you the first one. So currently I'm reading a book about the 80-20 rule, and that sometimes less is more. In what areas of your life do you think less is actually more?
I would go back to what we were talking about earlier. Less things on my to-do list is sometimes a really good thing. And that goes to my non-negotiables. I'd rather have more bigger things in terms of what they mean to me, quality moments in my life, than to have more things going on in my life. That could be just me. Like I know some people, it's the same kind of with friends. Somebody was asking me the other day, don't you wish you had like a lot more friends? And I said, no, actually, I'm really good with what I've got. Because my brain is wired that I like to have a smaller group of close friends that I can hang with, have really good conversations with, and I don't need 100 other people that I can just be with, right? So everybody's got to find their own version of that, but that's a perfect example for me of less is more. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. Quality over quantity.
Yeah, for me, right? And I'm not saying it's the case for anybody else, but that's for me and the way that my mind works.
You gave already so many great advices and tips in this interview, but what would be your best advice on making a change and to start living a fulfilled life for someone in their 20s and someone in their 40s or 60s? And is there a difference in age?
Great question about, is there a difference in age? You know, physically, it's a little bit easier when you're in your 20s. But that said, this year has been a resurgence in my efforts around my own physicality. And I've always been an athlete, so I never lost it. But there's been a whole new resurgence this year. So, you know, you can redefine what your body looks like and feels like at any age, I firmly believe. But I would say a piece of advice that intuitively comes to mind right now, and no matter what age you are, is sometimes we get so focused on what we're running away from that we forget to ask the question, what do I want to run towards? And it's much easier to run towards and therefore run away at the same time when you have that thing that you're excited about. I think it takes much more courage to run away from the bad thing when you don't know where you're even going. And so that would be one of my suggestions. Allow yourself to figure out what you want to run towards, allocate your time and energy towards that, as opposed to just running away from stuff. Because I've seen people, now that I'm saying that, I've seen people engage in pretty self-destructive behaviors. Let's say they have a career that they don't really love, and that's occupying, 60, 70 hours of their life. It has a negative impact on their relationships at home, even their friends. And so they'll run away from that. And I did this when I was younger. I would run away from that by getting really, really drunk on the weekends. And it seemed like a pretty good solution. Like, I didn't have the pain of the job anymore on a Friday night because I was out at a club hanging with my friends and really throwing down a lot of cocktails. But in truth, I was just running away from that. I wasn't running towards the life that I wanted to live. And that would have been far more productive had I have understood it at that point.
I had the same when I told you I was feeling lost in my 20s. I was the one dancing on the table every Saturday night because I was so drunk. And now I stopped drinking 4 years ago. And it's like you say, running towards something you feel excited about when you get up in the morning is the best thing, the best choice we can make. And
that's a great proxy. Right? I mean, how you feel when you wake up first thing in the morning is a great proxy for how much distance do you want to keep running towards something, or are you there yet? Or are you partially there yet?
Yeah.
I mean, were you there when you made the transition to leave your existing life and head off to India? Was that like a snap the finger kind of thing where literally the minute you started your adventures, were you more excited to wake up first thing in the morning?
Yeah, 100%. Right. I was super excited. The mornings and also the evenings are great teachers, I think, because if you go to bed totally exhausted but proud of yourself and you achieve the most important things, your priorities, not a long to-do list. Sometimes also on the to-do list, less is more, but you achieve the important things that actually will bring you closer to your dreams and to live the life you truly desire, then it was a good day. And if you collect good days, it will become a good month and a good year and a good life. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that approach. It goes back to the being very present. And I have a particular friend. We have a regular conversation about this, and just because it's just a difference in the way that her mind works and my mind works. And so, because I think I frustrate her sometimes with my focus on the non-negotiables. And I said, listen, I just try to say, if I can make this minute a good one, and then I do that same thing for the next minute, by the end of the day, it will have been a good day. And exactly to your point, if I keep doing that every day, it'll be a good week, and eventually it'll be a good year. And that's good enough for me. I'm not saying that's going to work for anybody else, but it works for me.
Yeah, you can only share your opinion and your thoughts, your ideas. And I think this is what a great coach, a great mentor does at his job. He's not giving you the plan, like do this, the next step is this one, plan A, plan B, plan C. It's just about asking the right questions and giving advice, but the person needs to find their own path and their own journey.
Yeah, because I haven't lived their life. Not the only life I've ever lived, the only brain I've ever been inside of is my own. And therefore, although I think I can grasp what other people might be going through, the truth is that it's a guess, because I don't know what it's like to be inside of their head. And that's why I caveat so much. We've talked to a lot of different topics on this interview, and I've caveated probably almost everything by saying that's what works for me, but I can't guarantee it's going to work for anybody else. I hope it does. And I think I certainly think that we can get a piece of wisdom, an aha moment, advice from another human being and apply it to our own life. And it does work. I do that all the time. But, and maybe the positive thing about that, honestly, Marcel, for us to say is if we hear a piece of advice and we try it and it doesn't work, don't feel bad that it didn't work. Like that just meant it was something that wasn't quite right for you. It doesn't mean all advice doesn't work. Just go find a different piece and try that one on for size.
This is also very important. I think if you start reading books about self-help and personal development, some books are meant to be, studied, like with the highlighter and taking notes. And other people say, oh, you should read this book, but maybe it's the right one for you. And it's the same with advice.
Or maybe it's not right now, but 5 years from now, it's going to be the perfect book.
Yeah, just put it in the shelf. And to finish this amazing interview, I would like to ask you, John, how do you deal with bad days?
It depends on the day, and it depends on what's causing it to be a bad day. But my general philosophy is to ask myself the question, I wonder why this is happening to me. And to ask it from a place of curiosity and inquisitiveness. Because earlier in my life, and I've gone through, people who know my story know that when I was in my early 20s, I had some major, major setbacks in terms of my dreams, like dramatic, like turn your life completely upside down setbacks. And back then, and it was not because I did something wrong. It was like something completely out of my control, a series of those moments. And I just felt like the universe was just pounding on my head for some unexplainable reason. And back then I would ask the question, why is this happening to me? Like, this is so unfair. Like, I'm a good person. I do good things. Why is this happening? That question never got me anywhere. But the same question asked differently, right? In terms of my intonation, wonder why this is happening. That's a place of curiosity. That's a place of potential growth. And if I can ask that question, and I'm not saying I'm great at it every single time by any stretch, Marcel, but if I can ask that question and I can sit in the silence that we were talking about, it is amazing what I learned from that moment, which helps me not only then, but helps me because once you learn a lesson, you get to use that for the rest of your life. Once you learn a major life hack or a technique for breathing or a particular form of exercise that really works with your physicality, you get to use it for the rest of your life. And so when I allow myself to ask that question and sit in the silence and get the answers, it's profound because now I have a piece of wisdom that is forever mine to use. And so I do that. I will also say that my team is great. If I'm having a particularly challenging day, that they'll say to me, like, it's okay. We'll get beyond this. So we support each other. And I think there's probably a great life lesson in that too, which is allow yourself to surround your environment with good people so that when you're having a particularly tough day, they'll help you. And when they're having a tough day, that you can help them as well. Like that makes life definitely easier. And that can be with technology today. Geez, that can be somebody from anywhere on the planet, right? I mean, you and I could text each other, be like, I'm having a shitty day. Oh, it's going to be okay, right? I mean, that's the yin and yang, how amazing that is that we can connect with people all over the planet who could be good, encouraging, supportive people. So I will say that, and this is something that I've been recommending a lot lately because A, I think it's really important. And B, I just think it's a great technique that when you're having a lousy day, do something good for somebody else. It just changes your state. It changes who's in control of the moment. Because I think that's one of the things that causes us our greatest angst in life is feeling like we're out of control. Somebody else is dictating to me, to my energy, what I should be doing, feeling, experiencing. And nobody likes that feeling that they are out of control of their own reality. So the minute you take control back and you say, no, you know what? I don't care how crummy this moment is. I'm going to go do something nice for someone else. And these days, again, yin and yang, it's effortless. You love this discussion that we're having? Take a moment and write a 5-star review for Marcel on his podcast. Right? You love the discussion that you're having? Jump on the John Strelecky audio experience. Write a 5-star review for that. You love a book you're reading? Take a moment, jump on Amazon, write a 5-star review. The people that are the haters love to write negative reviews. And so take control back. And when you're having a tough day, do something good for someone else. If writing a review isn't your thing, then literally go for a walk on the sidewalk and make eye contact with somebody and just smile, right? That alone will change their physicality, their state. So I do my very best to think about that and remember that a small random act of kindness puts control back with me and makes a positive difference in the life of somebody else. And that's a great thing. And any of us can do that.
Thank you so much for this answer, John. I love it. It's yeah, everything you can ask for, like accept that you have a bad day, but still help others, because it will always come back to you. Like what you give out to the world will come back to you. Maybe not instantly, but you will just feel better about yourself. And what really helps me on a bad day is to also treat myself a little bit, to be kind to myself, to allow myself to rest a little bit more, or maybe to have something delicious for dinner, or watching a movie, taking time to read, to reflect. Yeah, I loved this conversation, John. Where can people find you?
They can find us on Instagram, so at John Strelecky on Instagram. And I will do a tiny little plug for something. Speaking of people helping themselves, this year, my team at the start of the year got together and said, what would make this year something super cool, right? Something super special. And so every 21 days, we are giving €1,000 towards somebody's dream. And so this year we've already fulfilled, gosh, it depends, I guess, when this podcast will get posted, but I think we've already fulfilled 6 or 7 dreams, including someone who wanted a camera for a particular passion that they had, photography, a woman who wanted to send her daughter to art school. And so literally jump on Instagram on our account, because we would love to fund your dream in 2023. And so they can find us on Instagram for that. They can find people on my own podcast, the John Strelecky Audio Experience, and probably pretty much anywhere else online, to be honest with you, Marcel.
Perfect.
And you, what's the best way for people to find you? I mean, they know you because it's your show, but for anybody who's listening to cut out this, that they're on mine, what's the best way for them to find you? What's the best way for them to find your videos to start with? Because I've already raved about you, but I want to watch this dude on video. He is so good. What's the YouTube outlet they should find you in?
It's just Marcel Clementi on YouTube, where you can find a lot of free yoga videos and classes. Most of them in English. In German, no, I'm already. Yeah, I would love that we have this conversation in German, because it would have been much easier for me. But like you said, sometimes you need to do the hard things, and I really enjoyed listening to you. They can find me on YouTube, Marcel Clementi, or on Instagram. It's the Good Vibes mit Marcel Clementi podcast on Apple and Spotify. And that's it. On my website, they find the link everywhere below. But yeah.
All right. So I got to ask you, because this is one of the videos that I saw that I was just like, wow, that's incredible human strength and focus. There is one where you go from a standing position to a handstand, completely balanced on nothing but looks like your fingertips. How many weeks, months, years did it take you to get to be able to focus that strongly and build your physicality that strongly to be able to do that?
So first of all, I need to say that it's not on my fingertips. To be honest, it's just on my hands.
Doesn't make it any less impressive, but okay.
But yeah, that's what I love about practicing the handstand. It's the same with success, with starting a YouTube channel or writing a book. At the moment, I'm also writing my first own book, so I'm very excited. Awesome. And it's the same with practicing handstands. If you do it every day for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you will get better, and you build up confidence, you will build up the skills. And if you take continuous practice and patience, you will reach the handstand, and you will also achieve all your goals and dreams. And this is what I really try to share. Like, this is my message in the podcast, that if you truly want something, you can achieve anything you want if you do the work. If you have great people like you to support and to guide and to ask yourself the right questions, and then there is no chance to not achieve your goals.
I love that. Well, you're definitely an inspiring guy, and I appreciate what you do on all the different levels. Because as you said, and you know it, but I'll reiterate it as someone from the outside watching the great stuff that you create, you'll only hear from 1/100th of a thousandth of all the people out there who you inspire, Marcel. And so, on the tough days, reflect back and be like, yeah, Maybe you don't hear from everybody, but I know that I'm having a positive impact on there because you definitely are.
Thank you. Yeah, that's something I'm really thinking about lately. I'm putting so much effort into this podcast, and I just started it last year and started interviewing people this year. You were my second English speaking guest. And it's a journey, and sometimes I think, oh, it's so much work, and I'm doing it all by myself, like the editing, the video, the sound, and I think, oh, why I am doing this? But I know why, because I want to help, I want to inspire, and if it's changing one life, then it's totally worth.
Yeah, it's all a great big adventure, isn't it?
It is.
You just never know, and I think that's awesome. I think it's absolutely awesome. Well, thank you so much for the invitation to hang out together. I look forward to not just doing another round of this. Let me know when your book is done, and we'll have you on the John Strelecky audio experience and talk in depth about the great book when it comes out. And otherwise, I look forward to our paths crossing in person sometime, hopefully very soon. Because that would be cool to hang out over a table or over a yoga mat and talk life.
Thank you, John. I just want to tell you to really finish this interview. You deserve everything you have achieved. You are such a great guy, so humble and so inspiring, and I really got goosebumps now. So this really meant a lot to me that you are in my podcast. Thank you so much.
You're totally welcome. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. And yeah, first of many interactions, my friend.
Yes. I pour so much heart and effort into this podcast. So please take 1 minute to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Write a review or send it to one of your friends who needs to get some good vibes, some inspiration. This is really the only chance to make this channel grow and to keep following my dream to inspire people to live a healthier and happier life. So thank you so much for your support.